Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm well, thanks, Jared. Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you.
Let's dive right in. We tend to keep these short and sweet. So let's first start out for those that, I doubt this, but for those that don't know you, tell them a little bit about yourself and then Stack Overflow as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm Prashanth Chandrasekar. I'm the CEO of Stack Overflow. I've been the CEO since 2019. After a long stint in the cloud industry and other sort of technology organizations, always been in tech since the beginning. Started out as a developer, but then became more interested in learning how businesses scale and really deliver great outcomes for users and customers. And so that's really what drives me. I happy to talk about Stack in the context of the company. We are really known for our public platform and the fact that we serve close to about 100 million people around the world. We've been around since 2008. The reason why that many people come to our site is because we've got something like 60 million questions and answers on every possible technology topic on the website. And that's been a really, really indispensable source of knowledge for developers and technologists looking to build technology of various kinds, writing applications and so on. It's a great place to get unstuck when they encounter issues and they're able to access the community to ask questions and get answers to their most pressing needs. So on top of that foundation, we have a couple different business lines. We have a enterprise business line that is made up of a private version of Stack Overflow that is used by companies all around the world, large financial services institutions, big tech companies and healthcare and so on. And they use it as a private knowledge base to create a very accurate, community curated, high quality knowledge base within their company. And that's used now in very fascinating and multi-dimensional ways, including, of course, all things AI, LLM training, RAG and indexing, and so on. And so that's one part of our business in the enterprise space. The other part of our enterprise business is really creating these fantastic partnerships with large cloud and AI players that are able to leverage all the knowledge that we continuously create and create mechanisms for that to, as we call it, knowledge as a service sort of delivery. And that we've done partnerships with OpenAI and Google and several more that we'll make public here shortly. So that's the enterprise side. And the other side of the business is, of course, advertising, which is, given the amount of traffic that we have, we allow companies to promote their products, promote their company as great places to go work and those sort of things. So all this is the spirit of serving developers and, of course, companies as a function of that.
I was interested in having you on for so many reasons, but obviously I wanted to hear what Stack Overflow was up to.
Yeah.
But also you're in such a unique position because you get to see all these questions coming in. And so I want to start with this. How over the last 2 years as AI has really been at the forefront, how much have those questions shifted to AI focused questions? And maybe are there any that really stood out to you over the last 6 months, a year?
Yeah, what's interesting about AI, yes, is definitely interest in learning about, for example, prompt engineering. And we've even created new spaces for that, for people to understand, how do you write great prompts? Which is obviously it's a great moment in time, big tectonic shift in the industry. A lot of new developers will come in. In fact, it sort of lowers the barrier to entry with this AI wave for younger folks who are not even deep technologists to be able to enter the space. Because it should be easier than ever to write code because it's now abstracted even at a much higher level, because you're really prompting. And all of software development over the years has been all about this kind of process of abstraction to make it, from the zeros and ones all the way up to something that's very elegant and easy to use in a scalable way. So I think absolutely there's curiosity on that subject. There's, we see definitely a spike in AI and ML related questions. We have the Stack Exchange focused on that topic as an example. So very specific tags that are, let's say, correlated with AI and ML have absolutely seen increases. What is even more interesting is the need for companies that really want to sort of complete their experience as they learn about these AI tools. I think what is most fascinating to see is people's interest level in using AI tools is very, very high. We conduct surveys every year to obviously hundreds of thousands of people, and consistently now for almost 2 years in a row, and we'll do one this year as well, that over 70% of our user base cares about using AI tools and wants to use it or is already using it, right? So it's a pretty high number, especially given like the scale of the community. But what's also fascinating is that only 40% of that group truly trusts what is coming out of these AI tools. So they want to be, so that's a key problem that we're trying to solve, which is how do we make sure that when users are leveraging AI tools for all these great things to remove the craft of, writing software programs and remove all the drudgery, which is fantastic. But how do they also feel like they can trust this in the context of them working in a bank and writing a production level application as one example. So that's one big problem that we see, users really grappling with on the AI front. And then the other couple of problems are slightly kind of related in that the LLM providers, as they try to there's obviously a big race going on to make sure that their LLMs are most effective and most accurate LLMs and produce high quality useful information for folks. There's what we call an LLM brain drain issue. What I mean by that is you need new knowledge to be created, even if in a synthetic data world that you need human curated knowledge, people to be able to articulate what's in their minds, and really to be able to produce new knowledge in some places like ours, so that then that can be used for model training and LLM improvements and fine tuning, etc. And so that's the second problem, what we call LLM brain drain. And the third problem is what we call answers are not answers are not exactly knowledge, AI answers, because what that means is oftentimes, and I'm sure you've done this, try to use AI tools, and they will hit complexity cliffs at some point, right? And so what's happening is that users are sort of bouncing from those experiences because they're like, yes, it sort of gave me a lot of the foundation, but it doesn't really answer my question on as I keep advancing the conversation. And so in that moment of need, we want to be able to complete that cycle for that user. And a lot of our partnerships with AI players like OpenAI and Google, et cetera, are to do this, is to make sure they can ask those questions on Stack Overflow, or even be able to provide answers to open questions on Stack Overflow, because then knowledge is always being created on the platform, and hence the world goes around as they think about training their models in the future and so on. So just completing the answer, that flow, so they don't see a lot of churn in their AI user base, is something that's the other problem that we're solving. So those are the three issues, trust as the foundation, LLM brain drain, and again, AI answers, making sure that, they understand how to get completion of that through our platform.
Are there any particular models that are really standing out to you when you see like maybe what people are using or gravitating towards?
No, there's obviously I would say the big debate between closed models and open models, and that's certainly at play. I think the competition is absolutely fierce, and we noticed this when a lot of these folks reached out to us in the spirit of getting access to our knowledge so that they could train it. And we obviously have it's kind of an iceberg sort of concept in that the data that's available on the public website when people used to scrape it, etc., is what's above the water. But then we have underneath the water all the metadata from 16 years of saying, Jared and Prashanth, started with asking, basic questions on maybe basic as a sort of software programming language. And then they moved on to Python, and they moved on to, Rust and so on. And so that history of learning, commenting on answers, answering questions incorrectly. So we know a lot about how people learn, how people progress their thinking. That's why even the data is useful in many ways in non-coding use cases for training, even because it's so well structured in Q&A and comment detail and history. So a lot of these folks, open source and closed source folks, reached out to us as this wave started really sort of taking hold last year. So that's very apparent, the Metas of the world, the Mistrals of the world, relative to, of course, the OpenAIs and anybody else in the Googles of the world. So that is remarkable to see. I think the other dimension, of course, is to see the various trade-offs on, if you've actually used most of the knowledge in the universe, the open internet as an example, which is really why we believe, I think we've gone into more of a closed internet for companies to work with each other. I think the internet will be open for users, but if companies are trying to now, use large-scale components of knowledge, like on big websites like ours, like that part has become a little bit more of a formal relationship with these companies, because this is the world that we live in now. And so in that world, I think what's interesting to see is a lot of companies are tapping out on new knowledge that they can get access to be able to train their models. So the compounding effects of compute and data and just cost to do all these things with chips. I think generally speaking, there seems to be tremendous competition on all of those dimensions. Where's the latest data that I can get to be able to be, highly accurate and up to date? So obviously XAI being a little bit of a dark horse in this aspect. And then how do I make it the cheapest and most accessible for various use cases? So smaller models, small language models, etc. So there's a lot of innovation there. So open and close is on one dimension, and then you have this like real-time access to data is the second dimension. There's a lot of competition there, and then the third one is around, of course, cost, and how do you transfer those savings to users? So everybody's not paying like hundreds of dollars for each of these things every month.
When you think of the future of Stack Overflow, based on what you can tell us here today, like what does that look like? What really excites you about the future that you're helping build?
Yeah. For us, it's very much all centered around the community. I think we're very convinced more than ever that, there are going to be very few places which are authentic human places to engage, to move humanity forward in a communal sense. And we're one of those places. The other company I can think of is maybe like a Reddit, which is a very different website in the context of their forum, their discussion board. We're meant to be a little bit more of a source of accurate knowledge to a very specific question. And that's a slightly different. So I think that so our goal will be to be one of those very authentic human places for technologists to engage in. And the way we're going to bring that to life is through an AI context. We want to be able to be the sort of substrate, which we're calling effectively knowledge as a service. So how do we go wherever the developer is, wherever the technologist is? If they're all in Gen AI tools and they're spending a lot of their time there, because they're asking a lot of simple questions and they just want to be able to do that quickly in their flow of work, fantastic. We will surface our content up there. Previously people used to come explicitly to our website to be able to get access to some of the information. They still do, obviously. But more and more, if people are going to Gen AI tools, we want to be able to be relevant there as well. And so and be helpful there. And so in that context, you will see us do a lot of integrations with AI companies and cloud companies, and that's what we've been on, kind of a real sort of concerted effort on. Also, the same concept extends to the enterprise. So as companies use our private Stack Overflow for Teams product, they will have access to our data set in that product, but also the public data set for their own internal RAG and indexing and fine-tuning and model training needs inside their company. So the same concept of knowledge as a service extends into the company with our products, so that again we will integrate into things like ChatGPT Enterprise or GitHub Copilot, which we just made an announcement with Microsoft about a week ago, where Stack Overflow, the agent, has now been integrated into GitHub Copilot. So you're able to get Stack Overflow context and knowledge right in your GitHub Copilot integration. So that's a very powerful way, so that you've got all the best information. Even if you're using Copilot and you're generating code, it also allows you then to say, how do I learn what is actually being generated? Here's all the context behind why you've chosen this library. What are the pros and cons? You can continuously engage the agent to do that. So it's a very interesting time for our company, but it's all about how do we be useful to our developers with those problems I described up top in the context of their work, which is why we're calling this knowledge as a service, both on public and private.
For the no coders out there, do you think we are overstating some of the technology today? So I know you can do so much with it, and you can use, GitHub Copilot, and you can put together, but clarity around a lot of things when building out an application. I think we're still overstating the rhetoric out there that you won't need software developers, or by next year you won't. I think that's marketing terminology. I don't know. What are you seeing?
Yeah.
These platforms are obviously great, and they are improving very quickly.
Yeah.
I think it will allow developers to be able to do a lot more and focus on the more nitty-gritty parts of their job. Maybe they want to dive deeper into. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's we can look at history to inform us a little bit about some of these movements. The history is there's so many examples of the world trying to automate away. There's a continual sort of pursuit of that, right? This is in many ways obviously a huge step up in that world, because you're doing so much abstraction and you're making it so much easier. So I think on the jobs front, if you look back to the BPO era, where jobs moved away to other parts of the country, other parts of the world, because there was lower cost locations to build applications. Or if you look at the DevOps era in the early 2010s, which was all about automate all the things sort of movement. All those eras, if you notice the number of software developers, they only kept increasing. So you'd argue if you actually like moved a bunch of easy work away, the number of jobs would go down, or you would automate a lot of things, so the number of jobs would go down. Why do you need software? The reality is that there's an infinite amount of software to be written, or number of ideas to be sort of explored, and so it always is made up. Let's say the lack of growth in the previous type of job is made up with new kinds of job. It's new kinds of jobs, so it's no different from the horse carriage to the car industry, right? It's the same thing. So I think this is, in my opinion, no different in that it lowers the barrier to entry. There may be, for a company, there may be a pressure to say, do more with a lot less. So for a large company that has got, let's say, 1,000 developers, you may not need to go add hundreds more developers to go get work done. You may be able to do, perhaps with 1,000 or maybe some number lower than that, right? And produce a lot more out of that output, out of that group of people. But we're also in an era which is creating a lot more new companies and a lot more new ideas are coming to light. Just think about just the AI ecosystem, the number of companies that have just been founded and launched and funded by venture capitalists over the past just 18 months, even during a somewhat tricky economic time, is staggering if you look at any market map. So all those companies need developers. So the fact is that they may not work at X large company with 1,000 developers anymore. They may have to work with some new company, but there's still a need to go build new things. So I am actually always optimistic about these sort of tectonic shifts, that there will be more people that actually end up entering the space, and there's going to be a lot more to go do, because it just may be different things. What a developer, quote unquote, may be something slightly different in the future, because they're, again, no coders, as you put it. And so their activities may be different from when you and I perhaps wrote code back in the day, but the number of people, in my opinion, will increase. So yeah, is there an overestimation? It's sort of a simplicity in how people explain this? Yes. I also think that there's a little bit of a lag effect. If you look at prior cycles, like the cloud era, it takes a long time for things to go from here to here. The change curve is quite wide, and yes, people will get left behind and so on, but it will happen over an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like for the no code folks out there, I think what it has, what AI has allowed for is the ability to understand more of like the code. Like it allows non-developers to speak more developer code than ever before,
Yes.
right? And I think that's going to be huge for the type of applications that we create, because we're almost in the, if you can picture it, you can create it,
Right.
like era.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Last question for you before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to from the HumanX conference?
I am really looking forward to hearing from what I believe is like a fantastic group of people that you folks have brought together, speakers, as I was mentioning too. I think it's just really impressive, considering this is year one of the conference for you folks. The quality of my fellow speakers very high, and it's wonderful to see that, and looking forward to learning about other people's experiences and how they think about the world, as many of the questions we've talked about today. That's what I'm most looking forward to, and learning about other people's experiences and meeting with the community who's hopefully going to be there in person.
All right. We'll see you there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.